Charlie Parsons Boxing Social in association with William Hill and Empire Fight Store. Always a pleasure. Mr. David Coldwell went back and forth yesterday, couldn't quite slot it in, but man of your word, we're sat on Zoom this afternoon. It's a very nice day. Just to make sure the lighting's correct, I've even shut the curtains.
How are you, mate? Right.
Yeah, all good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad.
Um, I suppose breaking news, let's go into it. And it's all come at a massive shock to us. I couldn't believe what I was seeing when I opened Twitter this morning. Amir Khan has tested positive for a substance as long ago as the post-fight drugs test with Kell Brook. Now, we very, very rarely see boxers fail a test post-fight because usually it's the random drug testing when they turn up on their door at whatever hour, and usually there's a fighter will tweet about it in jest and be like, look, they're coming to me at this time. But everyone knows, every fighter knows at that level there will be a post-fight drugs test. I suppose the first thing is, what is your reaction to all this, Dave?
No, again. Okay, boxing at the moment, mate. It's very frustrating at the moment. Big fights not happening. Just bullshit over when fighters do get found to be cheating. There's always some sort of discrepancy. There's always, there seems to be inconsistencies with the governing bodies. There's so much that's going off in the sport right now that's just, I'm tired, to be honest. I'm tired of it. And I love boxing, but it's just shit at the moment, isn't it? Shit. When I was in the gym with the lads, we was training, and then just finishing off, my phone's popping off. Somebody's rung. I'm like, what's going on? And yeah, the news broke that Amir Khan has failed a test now. But yeah, it just seems it's one thing after another at the moment.
So I suppose a couple of things to note is Amir Khan has known about this failed test as far as April 2022.
Yeah.
According to Ben Shalom's comments, Robert Smith was only made aware of this failed test yesterday. Ben Shalom only found out through social media himself. This is what's being said. The first thing is, right, and I tweeted about it this morning, these testing agencies, etc., if they've known about this test for this long and notified Amir Khan as of 2022, we're talking over a year ago, the fight itself was, 15 months ago.
Yeah.
It says in their legislation that when something like this, the board and the promoters should be first to know. Do we now have to start questioning the bodies that are doing these testing as to why we've not been made aware of this sooner?
Without a doubt. I mean, I was always under the understanding that when somebody pops for PEDs, fails a test, the boxer that fails is informed, the promoter of the event's informed, and the governing body in this country, the British Boxing Board of Control, are all informed. Everything else outside of those three is confidential. So nobody else gets to hear anything, which is why, and we've heard before, the opponents of the boxers don't get to find out, things like that. But I was always heard that is what the procedure is. So when this news broke first, straight away, your immediate thought process, well, hang on a minute. They've all been sitting on this since last year. And, and obviously there's been the whole Ben, Matchroom, Eddie Hearn thing that's been going off, and it's like, but yet they've been sitting on something. And now we get the statement out from Boxer saying, well, hang on, no, we didn't actually know this. We wasn't informed this. We found out on social media along with you guys. That's mad.
If that's the case, that's scandalous, isn't it?
And the fact that the Board of Control were told yesterday, why? So why is it all of a sudden that nothing's been said for so long, and then they dropped one yesterday and one today? If they was going to wait so long, why didn't they contact them both on the same day, which they would do. But I don't understand how they can just inform the boxer and nobody
Yeah,
else.
because
What is
the
that?
boxer's not going to get any scrutiny when he's the only one that knows. And for
But
him to have had this information for what, it's April now, so a
yeah,
year,
yeah.
it's just
And it's
mad.
never come out. Nothing.
No.
That's quite scary because we're fortunate that Amir Khan's retired, so it
Mm.
doesn't make a difference. But usually, if it's somebody else, or if he wasn't retired, they'd have fought since then. They'd have had another fight. So if they're the only ones that have been informed of this, um,
Does this mean that there's other fighters?
but then again, UKAD is saying that they banned him. So has the ban been going on since he found? How long's he had? There's just so much bollocks around it. I mean, um, why were the promoters and the governing body not informed? It's uh, it's strange, and also it goes against what they're supposed to do. So when you're saying about do we question the people that are testing? Yeah, sure we do. Um, because it seems as though these people that we're relying on again aren't doing the job, um, which is not good at all.
So something that I've seen on the discourse online this morning is that in this instance, right, it's up to UKAD to go to the board and then the board to sort of do whatever. And because UKAD is the testing agency that's used by the board, then they're in place to do the um, bans, etc. But then why is it then when a fighter's failed test is with VADA that the situations are so different and they listen to certain things? And this is everyone, this is boards, promoters. It just seems like there's no consistency. 1 minute we're getting a failed test with this repercussion, 1 minute we're getting a failed test that comes a year later. That, I mean, do we even have clarity as to whether his ban, like, when is his ban in place from? Is it from today? Is it from when he
Yeah, we
failed?
don't know. Do
There's
we?
so many questions that I suppose we're in the dark about here, and it's not putting a great light on our sport, really, is it?
It's not at all because these testing agencies and UCAD's affiliated with the board. That's the one that we've had all this issue over the VADA test and the board not recognising VADA. Do they recognise VADA? Not being able to act because they've officially said that they don't recognise VADA and just UCAD. Well, this is who you recognise, and yet the relationship between yourselves and UCAD isn't how it should be because they've not informed you and you're the governing body. So UCAD need to come out and somebody at UCAD needs to explain what has gone off because you have our fighters' careers in your hands. You have the clean boxers' careers in their hands, health in their hands. Because if they're coming up against somebody who's a cheat, but you're not doing your jobs properly and things go, if you can't do that, what else are you messing up on in your work, in your line of work, in what your procedures are? Are you 100% accurate in your testing? Is your contamination procedures intact? If you're not following things to the letter in one aspect, why do we then accept that you're following it to the letter in every other aspect? And that's the thing. So they need to come out and explain that because, like I said, when initial reaction is, well, Boxer and the board, why have they not come out and talk? And then they're releasing statements saying that they didn't know. That they wouldn't release those statements if that wasn't true, because then they'd be open to being sued, and then all that could happen is that you could just turn around and say, "Well, hang on a minute, we've got email chains here sending you correspondence informing you of the test." So for me, as I'm sat here right now at 3:20, I'm looking at it and saying, "Well, UKAD, it's on you. Why have you not? Why have you not let this be known? And why has this been sat on for so long?"
Amir Khan was interviewed by Sky News this morning, which I
Mm.
found quite interesting because I when we hear stuff like this, I know Amir Khan is a real face in the UK, but I can't say I imagined a journalist to be at his door or wherever it was this morning and give that interview. Amir's response was, and this proves that he's known about it for a year, is I lost anyway, which a few people have laughed at because valid, he did, and it wasn't a great performance. But the other thing he said is that the trace was so small that he believes it wouldn't have done anything. So this is reiterating to our knowledge that he's known. And then I suppose keeps more loopholes, right? Because obviously, if you're a boxer and you find out that you failed a test, you're not gonna go and tell the whole world selfishly. But then there is a duty for this to come out. We expect to have heard it. We shouldn't be discussing this in 2023. This happened before the whole Conor Benn situation. And the last 6 months has been consumed with us having to ask Conor Benn questions non-stop. Why are we only now having to press and ask about, it just feels like as a fan of the sport, I just find the whole thing a bit mad.
Listen, I'm involved in the sport, and I find it even more mad and frustrating. This again goes to where apparently he found out April 6th, I think. But this is again why it's only him that was informed. If it was him that's informed, he's saying, I've retired. What do I need to come out and say? I'm not going to fight again. I don't need to go, and let the board know I'm boxing on such and such a date. So then he doesn't have to declare anything. He's retired. He's gone. He's walked away. Again, this is on UKAD. At the end of the day, Amir Khan's a retired fighter now. So regardless, a 2-year ban, whatever, it means absolutely nothing. It's nothing. The fact is, I've just seen an interview with him with Sky where he's saying that the trace is, a nanogram or whatever it is, just like a tiny, tiny amount. And he's saying he could have got it from shaking hands and shit like that. It could have gotten in his system from that side of things. I don't know enough about this drug to be able to comment on this sort of things. But what I will say, and this is what I need explaining to by experts, all right, is when somebody says to you, the trace is that small that it wouldn't have been, wouldn't have made any difference to performance or done anything. Doesn't that just mean, or couldn't it mean that it's on its way out of your system after being in bulk and it's coming out of your system as is processed through the body, and then at the time of you got tested, there was just that little bit left in the system? Because if that's the case, then you could have had shitloads of it in your system. I don't understand. A lot of fighters say that they say, "Oh, this trace, it was nothing. It was nothing in it." But it's nothing that's in you now. But back to when you took it, or when it got into your system, it would have been stronger. There would have been more in it. Then, obviously, I don't know when, was he tested throughout that camp and things like that. And I don't know how long this drug takes to get out of your system. There are drugs that take months to get out of your system. Then there are drugs that can be out of your system in hours. Literally hours. Pop a ped, it's out of your system, bosh, there, in X amount of hours. So what kind of length does this stay in your system for? Or can you take something that flushes it out of your system? Because I know people take stuff that flushes shit out of you. So again, just because somebody's tested, without knowing anything about the drug, just because somebody's tested 6 days before, 10 days before, whatever, oh, look, I passed that test. But in that window,
short life cycles of certain drugs.
Is it a short life? I don't know enough about it.
No, and I suppose this is the time similar to when the whole clomiphene went on, and I suppose because we're so interested in the sport, we sort of almost turn into like scientists and do our own research on the drug, or whatever. In the little bits that I've managed to come up with, obviously it's very fresh, and what I've seen online is I saw little bits that it can be like used for cutting weight.
Yeah,
so
I heard that.
This was a something that was done in fight week and weight cutting. Anyway, I don't want to drabble on this too much.
But what we need to know is how long is it? Well, don't need to know, and it makes no difference. He's
in his system, yeah.
But he's retired. He ain't gonna fight again. So it really makes no difference. You can say all you want, it makes no difference. The issue, what we need to find out is what's going off at UKAD.
Yeah.
But what I would like to know is how long this drug stays in your system for, and then you'll know from that date where he took his test, has then gone and banged it in, and because he's saying trace, 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 we kind of like it makes irrelevant whether it's a trace or not. If it's something that would be on you its way out of the system, and you were stacked on it a little, a short time ago.
Dave, something I've just thought now as you were saying that is, UKAD have a duty to go back to the board and give the results of all the tests.
Yeah.
So does this mean, and this is obviously speculation between me and you, but as what we've heard it right now, the board have either been told previously, because they would have wanted the reports from UKAD post-fight more recently than April 2023, right? So either there's gross negligence there in the fact that they've not asked for the post-fight drugs test, which I find very, very weird, or have UKAD said it's fine? I mean, how can the board that govern our sport only just be finding out about it now? Is the test has been known about since what, April 6th?
Yeah, so I get what you're saying, and this again, you would have to ask Robert Smith, what is the procedure? Do you just take for granted that if you don't hear anything from UKAD, that the test is clear and everything's fine? You know that there's a test on that day. You don't, it's extra chain of correspondence, time, whatever. You don't chase up and say, oh, by the way, how did those two boxers test go? Because there are lots of fights going off, so there's lots of drug tests maybe going off. So maybe it's a case of, listen, if we don't get in touch with you, all's good. That might be the case where UKAD only do get in touch with you if there is an adverse finding. Maybe that's how.
Do we need to change legislation?
Well, if UKAD can't be trusted to let you know, then yeah, 100%, obviously so. But until there is that thing, it's like trusting your kids to look after the house while you're going away. Until they fuck up and throw a party and smash your house up, you kind of got that element of trust there, and everything's cool, and you might do it 10 times, 15 times, it's not a problem. The first time that they fuck up and your house is trash when you come back, that shit never happens again. Do you know what I mean? So maybe it's a case of that's how things work. I don't know. That's a question that needs to be asked of the board. A question needs to be asked of UKAD. UKAD really, these people really do need to. They have the responsibility of our sport, of looking after our sport. Been given that responsibility, but with that responsibility, they need to make sure that they're doing the job right, and there's no cover-ups and there's no misinformations. They need to be held accountable, like everybody else is held accountable. They need to be held accountable. It's like you need to. Does anybody know how much? How often their labs are inspected to make sure there's no cross contamination and things like that? Obviously, UKAD is not just boxing; it looks after all other sports as well. So this is actually a big thing for the whole of this sports industry, because this is where they've been sat on a result and they've not informed the governing body of a sport. Imagine if a top footballer got popped, but they were sat on the results and never informed the FA. That shit's not happening.
That'd be front page news, yeah.
Exactly. It's the equivalent of, all right, it's not football, but it's huge. It's a huge deal.
Lastly on this, because when I actually messaged you yesterday and I wanted to speak about everything that's going on with you and your guys and the whole Joshua fight, and it's mad that this is just, once again, we've been hit by this breakthrough news that just takes everything up. How much of a stain does this leave on Amir Khan's legacy if the test is true?
Anybody that fails a drugs test is stained. It does stain, but you kind of probably bad, but Khan's retired. He's
Yeah,
done. He's
because he
gone.
lost and it's come at the end of his career.
Yeah, listen,
Yeah.
he got hammered. He looked awful. He looked a shell of himself, and he got hammered in the biggest grudge match of his career, the highest profile fight of his career, and he was embarrassed in that fight. Apart from he showed his toughness and bottle, and then he walked away and he retired and he's done. So it doesn't really make any difference because he's not carrying on. People will say, or some people will say, "Oh well, did he cheat behind?" But then again, you look at his career, you look at him, you think, well,
There was
I
always
wouldn't.
that.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, oh well, that means he's been cheating all the way through his career. There's always a first time that somebody cheats, and when you're old, it's happened with fighters, fighters previously, like old fighters, they're getting old, the body can't do what it used to do, and so they do a bit of cheating, so maybe it's that, and I'd like to think that that's what it is, and that's how how it sort of happened. But like I said, kind of need to know what the how long this drug is in your system for, to know about this trace and how much of effect, because when they're saying, oh, it was that insignificant that it wasn't, it wouldn't have made any difference to his performance. And also when the panel said that he never knowingly took it, never took it on intentionally. How do you know that?
Yeah, how do they know
I,
that?
I don't understand. Not just him, with anybody. Whenever they say, when somebody else, a third party, makes a judgment and says he never knew that he took it, how do
And
you know
he's
that?
been monitored 24/7,
Yeah,
365. No one knows.
yeah. But yeah, it's again, it's another shitstorm for boxing, really.
Well, let's talk about more positive, and whether it is positive, I don't know. I at the time I thought maybe AJ should have put him away, but now I reflect on the fight and I think Jermaine Franklin, what a chin he's got, a very, very good counter puncher, etc. Leading into this fight, though, a lot of people did think Joshua should sort of try and get the knockout at least and try and make that statement on British boxing. Since then, Eddie Hearn's come out and said, look, we feel like he needs one more fight to be ready.
Yeah.
An Otto Wallin, a Dillian White, a Joe Joyce, something like that. What are your...
Can I just say this? I seen that today where they said, oh, one more fight to get ready for, and they named Joe Joyce as that one more fight just to get him ready for. Mate, a fight with Joe Joyce isn't a fight that you just to get ready for the next fight. That's
It's
a
funny you
real
should say
fight.
that. Sky Bet have put up some odds as if the fight happens, and Joe Joyce has been made the favourite.
And I can understand why. I can understand why. Obviously time goes by. If you've watched it back on TV, my initial reaction was, I thought I was really disappointed in the performance. Watching it back, I remember on the night I thought, well, he technically did some nice things in there, but just not enough. Watching the fight back, I've kind of like got a similar sort of feeling. He looked like he could have done so much more. If he's looking at fighting the top fighters in the division, he should have done so much more. But he just, I can't change my mind. He looks like a fighter that's just lacking in self belief, in a confidence, doesn't trust himself to let his hands go. Now, then you balance that with saying, right, okay, I didn't really think about it on the night, but he'd not won a fight since 2020. That's a big, for such a high profile fighter.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that in the build-up. And then he said
that's a long
the last
time.
time
That
he
is.
won a fight was Pulev, and I thought,
Yeah, so that's a long time. And we know that fighters, when they get a defeat, it does, it takes away a lot of the confidence. And it's always about rebuilding. But I just felt that it's not. it's something we've seen from him before. It's not like this is his first fight. Oh, it's the first time he's looked like he's doubting himself, looked like he's gone. No, it's been like this for a while now. He's been like this for a while, and obviously against Usyk, you can understand Usyk fries your brain and just skill levels, different level. There you go. But I actually thought he was more aggressive, and I might be wrong because I haven't watched it for a long time. But I thought it was actually more aggressive, or tried to be more aggressive in the second Usyk fight than he was against Franklin. And you talk about levels in an opponent. Franklin's tough man, very, very tough man, but you was never going to knock him out with one shot. But you're still throwing just single shots, single power shots. You know, it's a new coach and things like that, and it's the same sort of things we can keep saying for AJ, that, you know, new coach, got to get used to the style, got to get used to new instructions. But when we're talking about he's missing that dog in him, and that, you know, that aggression in him, that's what he looked like. And so, you know, even watching it back, that's how I feel. I feel as though there's something missing from him mentally in there, where he just doesn't have the full confidence in his own abilities, which is a shame because he has got the physical abilities. You know, he is improving as a boxer. The little things that he's doing when he goes to work are nice, but he's reluctant. He's too reluctant.
I suppose two in one here. Derek James post fight was asked a lot about the knockout, and he says, "I don't care about the knockout. I'm here to get a win with my fighter." Valid. That's your goal as a trainer. You don't you know,
Yeah,
whatever. It's just there was so much talk in the build up about the knockout as such. We talk about AJ's mental state, etc.
yeah,
Something I was asking a lot in the build up is his last win inside 6 rounds, right, was Eric Molina, and that was 2016, I think,
yeah.
2017. Regardless, a long, long time ago. Now, the AJ that I sort of grew up watching, and someone that sort of grabbed my love for the sport. And don't get me wrong, I still think he's done tremendous things for the sport on a grassroots level, etc. But he was this guy that you'd watch almost similar to a Deontay Wilder, and you had this feeling that it was going to go and it was going to be quite a quick fight, and you expected this sort of excitement, knockout power. Do you think that perhaps maybe that element to his game has gone a little bit?
I don't buy it. I've never bought into this where he's this big, massive one-punch knockout merchant. For me, AJ's attributes have been his combination punching. Brilliant combination puncher. When he puts his shots together, he used to be vicious. But in order to do that, you need to be confident enough to be able to let your hands go in range. And that's where I feel that he hasn't got that confidence anymore, which is why he's been very selective about his punching. Listen, there's nothing wrong in that. It's just that you kind of like have to look at him as a different fighter these days. If you remember Vladimir Klitschko, when Klitschko was getting bounced around the ring, and we all thought he was done. That's it. He's finished. He's never coming back. Happened a couple of times, and then he went to Manny Stewart, and Manny Stewart recognised his frailties. And what he did is that he worked with him in order to make sure that those frailties weren't exposed again. Taught him how to use his attributes. Wasn't the most exciting style, but it kept him out of harm's way, and he became the most dominant heavyweight he'd been for a long time. 10 years, I think it was, at the top. You know? Maybe we have to look at AJ now as not as this exciting fighter that you're going to go and watch, and you're going to look at, you know, have these great nights and, you know, entertaining fights and great knockouts, but as maybe he needs to develop into a fighter where he is, because if obviously mentally, no matter what aggressive trainers he's working with, they're making him wanting to do this, wanting to do that. If he doesn't believe in his own capabilities himself, and if he's too wary about getting hit himself, he needs to flip that on his head. And, you know, the performance, if you look at it in a boxing sense, he boxed really well against Franklin the other night. Could have been a bit more active with his lead hand, could have put his shots together a little bit more, but, you know, he did box pretty well. You know, won quite handily, controlled him. So maybe they need to build on that and just go, right, listen, let's just win. It's just a case of winning, like Klitschko did, and consequently, that means that the big exciting nights aren't really there anymore. But he keeps on winning, and you know who knows what he can go on to achieve. Like I said, Vladimir Klitschko was written off, finished, done, mentally destroyed, and sprawled about on canvas a few times. But he came back to be the most dominant heavyweight there's been for a long, long time. So sometimes you have to understand not a case of what you used to be, but what you are now. And if that's what you are now, you have to make, if you're going to stay in the sport and keep pursuing to be, you know, champion, then sometimes you have to adapt and change your style to suit how your mentality is now.
Look, Dave, it's saying there's only 7 minutes left, which probably shows how much chatterboxes me and you are. Just lastly on that front, because I do want to speak to you about the gym and especially Jordan Gill, because I had a really entertaining interview with him. Jermaine Franklin, is he now a sort of world level contender in the heavyweight division? Two real solid performances.
Is that two solid opponents against top opposition? Lost them both, but given both really good fights. So he's a fighter that the other guys around the top will you know mix for a good fight. So he's put himself right in the mix.
Right, Newcastle, obviously Hopey Price, with a unanimous decision. I interviewed Jordan Gill post-fight. He said how happy he was. I spoke to you as well. A lot of Hopey's mental struggles as well. I know he's always been someone that sort of kept himself to himself, but
Yeah.
you know, kept himself in the gym when maybe a lot of others would
Yeah,
spiral. No one could really blame them, really.
Yeah.
Just on him, I know we spoke about it before, but just how proud are you? I know it's quite like almost like a father-son relationship between
massively.
you, and that's really nice to see.
Yeah, without a doubt, he's something I'm incredibly proud of the young man that he's growing into. Deals with a lot of stuff going off, you know, emotionally and you know, outside the ring with family, friends, things that have happened. But yeah, he handles himself really well, and he put in a really good performance. It was a fight where it was a performance because we knew because of things that had gone off. His gran was very ill, really badly ill. He only trained for 5 weeks for that fight, and so I knew that he wouldn't have the gears as what he would normally have, but he still managed the situation really well, putting a good boxing display, and controlled a guy that had been European champion, fought for a world title, you know, and it's his 10th fight, and he won every minute of every round. So a really good performance. So yeah, over the moon with that. But we move on, and we know that he's better than that, and we know that you know he's looking forward to getting back out again. He will no longer be boxing at super bantamweight. He's going up to featherweight. You just know when you know he looked fantastic making the weight. He looked great on the scales, but when I was in the change rooms on the pads with him, he didn't feel the same. He didn't feel the same. He didn't feel strong. He didn't punch with any snap. And it's the first time when I've watched him in the ring where his punches didn't look like they've got much on him.
Yeah.
It didn't look as strong as what he normally does. And yet, you know, you're watching him in sparring. You watched Kane Baker the other night, watching him in sparring with Kane, watching him in sparring with Leon Woodstock. The kid's strong, and they're all surprised at how strong he is. But obviously, he's a little bit heavier than when he's sparring with them. He's a little bit heavier than what he is. You know, having to come down to that 8 stone 10 weight. So rather than waiting until it's too late,
Yeah,
that showed me a little sign, you know, and I'm like, yeah, he's just under 6'4". Like literally, it's 5'11" and a half.
puts me to
So
shame.
yeah, me. So with him, what I'm, you know, rather than, and like I said, he was 23 the other week. He's still growing. I'm not going against nature. When your body starts telling you first, as soon as it tells you, hang on a minute, I can't quite perform. Yes, I can make the weight, but I can't quite perform as what I normally would do. Then it's time to move up. So he's going up to featherweight now. And that extra 4, well, not extra 4, but that 4 pounds of not having to lose I'll make a big difference. Because I know what I see in sparring and I know what he's capable of.
Well, it's nice to hear that because I saw a fighter put something out and he was like, there's so many fighters out there that will be killing themselves and getting themselves
Yeah,
as small as possible to make a certain weight. And obviously, you want to be as sort of to an extent as big as you can for a weight, but not so much that it's going to jeopardize you on
yeah.
fight night.
But you see, also you've got to look at with the age of him. I mean, Stephen Cairns have done the same thing. Stephen Cairns, super featherweight. He's had his last. I'm moving up to lightweight. His last two fights, he's gone up to lightweight now. So because they're growing, they're still filling out. So you can't go against nature.
Just really quickly, literally says 3 minutes left. So we're gonna have to just do everything in one here. I will just quickly say on Jordan Gill, done a very, very fun interview with him. He said to me he's never had a rivalry in his life on a press conference table that he's been able to get his teeth into. And absolutely slaughtered Isaac Lowe. And as boxing fans, these are the sort of, regardless of what we think of Jordan, regardless of what we think of
Yeah,
Isaac, comments are always going to be made. We need these sort of rivalries to happen. They're what makes the sport so interesting. And also, it will be nice for Jordan to get his teeth into something like that because he's never really had a fight where he's had to,
no,
like it almost feels like you're fighting for more when you've got that. It's got pride
yeah,
involved as well.
yeah. You just said it all. That's that. He's buzzing for that. I just want an 8 rounder back for him. He's boxing at super featherweight now. So he's going to box at super featherweight, 8 rounder, and then we're happy to do Isaac Lowe. Just waiting to find out, who wants to do something with him.
And then 2 minutes. Do you want to rattle for everyone else?
I was wrapping up because I thought that was it. Yeah, Stephen Cairns. I'm just waiting to see what's happening next. Just trying to sort his situation out. Young Muhammad Ali, he's in the middle of Ramadan at the moment, but after that, he'll be out looking at probably June for him. And young Joe Cooper's doing well in the gym. Just turned 17, so he's the baby of the bunch.
Well, Dave, it's always a pleasure to speak to you. Nearly 40 minutes. So I'm sorry to have wasted all of
No
your time
worries.
in what could have been spent in the sun in this lovely April
All right.
afternoon. Dave, it's always a pleasure. I always enjoy picking your brain and speaking boxing with you. So thank you for your time.
Cheers, mate. Nice one. Take care.
Legend. Nice one, brother.